Hello Gemini, Gemini Rising, and Gemini Moon people. This is your weekly astrological and card horoscope for the week starting March 20th, 2017. And stay tuned. Later on this week, at some point, I'm going to be putting up a video on why I keep talking about rising signs and why that's important, and why a lot of astrologers who are worth their salt will also ask you to do the same thing. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that. I can't promise it won't get too technical, but it will be educational. That I can promise. So, oh, and don't forget, if you want to get a session with me, just go to my website, integrativemysticism.com. It's a self-schedule program. So what is going on here with your astrology? Well, this week, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy, especially for the first 4 days, Monday through Thursday, in the best of ways. You know, because a lot of you Gemini people are kind of coming into a place where people are going to be reaching back out to you. Your network's coming back to you. If you feel like you've been isolated from people, you feel like maybe you've gone forgotten, your friends are not necessarily, you know, showing up the way they used to. Well, early in the week with the sun going into Aries, into your 11th house of friendships and social networking, we do have your contacts, you know, starting to repopulate. You know, we've got a social life for you again. We've got more fun, we've got more recreation, but also an opportunity possibly to even get started on a big bucket list item that we let go by the wayside way back when. Now, later on the week, we've got a couple of things that do need to be talked about. We've got Mercury in this 11th house of friendships and social networking, forming an opposition to Jupiter, currently retrograde, in your 5th house of love, romance, and your relationships with your kids, but also a big creative project, or a big personal project, or maybe even a big personal business goal. Now, when Mercury opposes Jupiter, it's talking about impractical, not impossible. Okay? Those are two different words, meaning two different things. And when we talk about impractical, there may be something that's going on that we have to address regarding, you know, maybe a future plan with our kids, or maybe a future plan for a personal business, whether we share it with a romantic partner or not, that has been either getting off on the wrong foot or has somehow come down the wrong road, and we need to do a U-turn. It doesn't mean that we're going to lose a bunch of money. It doesn't mean we have to start from square one. It just basically means that we need to check our pride at the door, because all of the, you know, sometimes we get into that, you know, Jupiter retrograde kind of gives us this sort of like, if I just stay optimistic, and if I just assume I have complete control over everything, everything will turn out right and the universe will bend to that will. That's not how it works. So we need to be able to address that. And this could also talk about maybe, you know, again, a dream plan with a lover, or maybe even a love opportunity as it relates to a friend. It can work. It's just that the plan that we've been working on is impractical, but not impossible. Also, over the weekend, we do have the sun in your 11th house of friendships and social networking conjunct Venus retrograde, also in this area. And some stuff's gonna be coming out between you and a friend of yours that, you know, you may have been noticing he or she has been kind of taking some digs lately. What happened to this good friend, and what is this, you know, this sort of hot mess I see before me kind of question, like, when did we start going down this road? You know, is there some kind of underlying beef between the two of you? Is there some kind of underlying offense that nobody knows they're supposed to apologize for? That all needs to come out as well, because we can't be doing this super reserved, they should know crap, and they shouldn't be doing that with you either. Luckily, the sun is always there to be for healing, so we could be getting our friend back the way they're supposed to be. So what's going on with your cards this week? Well, for your spiritual advice, we do have the card of Soul Kin. And the Soul Kin always talks about, again, getting more out of our bonds, strengthening our bonds, having deeper, more meaningful relationships with people beyond convenience and surface values, but also focusing on where there could be a need to do some recognition of some family patterns that are coming to light this week. You may not be the first person to encounter a certain problem with a family member, or with a child, or with whatever. You know, you may not be the only one. It could have been something like, this is something that this always happens in your family. You know, maybe this didn't happen to your mom, but it happened to your grandma. Maybe it didn't happen to your dad, but it happened to your uncle. So some family patterns are coming out here. Some family karma is coming out this week. It's not necessarily going to be a bad thing. If anything, this could give us some strategies on how to improve, alleviate, and cure what ails this situation forever. For your Earth sector, when it comes to your work and finances, we do have the Judgment card reversed. And when it comes to your work life, your financial life, the Judgment card reverse is saying you are going to be dropping something this week. You're going to be dropping something that you just simply do not want to take on for anyone else anymore. You may have volunteered for it in the first place, and you probably regret it the moment you did. This could be a financial plan, this could be an investment that you made, this could be an agreement, this could be maybe the fact that maybe you led somebody on accident. When it comes to business, when it comes to work, when it comes to any of those things. Maybe you accidentally accepted a proposal you didn't mean to accept. And this is the week where we're going to turn that around. Now, the Judgment card reversed is saying that you could also back away from something that's been put on the table with you this week. I would say, honestly, instead of backing away, pick it up off the table, change it, and then negotiate. Alright, because the Judgment card reversed is saying that, there is something that's unacceptable about this situation. You've got that much right. But we don't need to necessarily throw it in the trash, whether it's a job being offered to you, money being offered to you, hours, or a client making some kind of offer to you or some proposition. The Judgment card reverse can warn you about, not wanting to negotiate, being afraid to negotiate, being afraid to actually dialogue this into something decent. Do not go that way. Dialogue. For your communications with air, when it comes to your friends, your relatives, and the others in your life, we do have the Queen of Swords upright. So there is going to be somebody who I think wants to have a serious chat, or that we need to have that serious sit-down chat. And with the Queen of Swords, at least we know it's not BS, because the Queen of Swords doesn't do BS, they don't do it that way. They may actually be very, very, very straightforward, very clinical. And with the Queen of Swords, this could be maybe them talking about you and another person. I think that you and this Queen of Swords are on good terms, but they may be alerting you to a problem you didn't know that existed. Again, between you and another friend, you and another relative. And it would, this is somebody who's also, they're just the messenger, and they're not there to even judge. In fact, with the Queen of Swords, you can bet they're staying neutral. They are not taking your side, they are not taking their side, but they want to make sure that we can somehow get some peace going here. And I would express some gratitude, because this is something getting called to your attention that you didn't know was an issue, and it might not actually be an issue. This other person could be completely insane. But with the Queen of Swords, it is worth hearing. For your challenge this week with fire, we do have the Hermit card reversed. Coming out of your shell a little bit, speaking up. And again, being willing to have the uncomfortable dialogues. Now that's not always a challenge for the Gemini people, but sometimes you're afraid to come out of your shell and share your feelings with people because you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to hurt your spouse's feelings. You don't want to hurt your partner's feelings. You don't want to hurt your best friend. You don't want to disappoint your boss. But the Hermit card reverse is kind of saying, look, if you're letting them go and assume that you're cool with everything, and actually every move they're making and every word they say is just sort of like adding one more notch in the, on the stress line for you, this is not fair to them, because they're going to feel guilty. Eventually it's going to come out. It's going to explode. They're going to feel guilty. They're going to feel like they did something wrong. They're going to feel like crap because you were doing it to be nice. And so this week with the Hermit card reversed, you don't need that. You need to speak up. You can heal these things. You can clear these things. And, if anything, this person's going to be grateful that you did it before they just kept doing it over and over and over again. For your emotions with water and your romantic life, we've got the Devil upright. I feel like this week's going to be very pleasurable for a lot of the Gemini people, and a lot of that might have to do with the fact that we've got we've got this moon connection with Capricorn this week as well, with Pluto in your 8th house of intimacy. And you and your partner, you and your crush may have an avenue to enjoy maybe some taboos, maybe getting a bit experimental this week, sort of exploring and expressing your love in a different way. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, it doesn't have to be anything nuts, nothing too freaky. But with the, in PG-13, but with the Devil card upright, there is an opportunity for that. Or maybe this is something, a fantasy or something that you and your partner have wanted to try. You were just worried the other person's not going to give you a green light. Looks like we get to do this anyway. However, I do want you to pay attention, those of you who are single and looking. This week, we may have somebody who's willing to do that, but we don't want our connection to them to be all about that. Because sometimes the Devil can show up where we kind of get into too much of a groove with one certain aspect of a relationship, and it might not even be intimacy. It could be how, what we do for recreation, in a non-intimate way, or, or about money, or about, just status and things like that. So the devil, you know, be careful single Geminis, because we don't want to start a relationship on that platform accidentally. It's on you if you want to do it on purpose, but I think that you want to make sure you know what you're doing if you do. Okay? So that is your horoscope. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. You know I appreciate it. And of course, if you'd like to get a session, you can always follow the links below, or go to integrativemysticism.com.